President surrendered Earth to the aliens, but it was all part of his trap. They did not arrive with fire nor with fury. They arrived with silence, yet that silence crushed us more than any cannon ever could. The sky itself bent to them. The sun vanished behind their ships, and daylight became nothing but a memory. Our weapons, the missiles we trusted, the bombs we worshipped, were revealed as lies. They sparked, they flared, and they died like candle flames in a hurricane. In that moment, every nation, every army, every man and woman on earth learned the same truth. Against them, we were nothing. Cities froze in terror. Soldiers lowered rifles. Mothers whispered fading prayers. Fathers bled knuckles against unyielding walls. Children stared at the skies no longer theirs. Then came the words. The president, pale and hollow-eyed, faced the world through the cameras. His voice was steady, though burdened with ruin. Today, he said, I will give Earth to them. There is no other way. The world shattered in that moment. Crowds erupted in screams. Soldiers slammed their helmets into the ground, some breaking their rifles in rage, others dropping to their knees in despair. In homes and churches, whispers rose like wildfire. He has betrayed us. He's sold us out. In 1,000 different tongues, the same curse echoed, traitor. Inside the Capitol, the reaction was no different. Advisors stormed into his office, demanding answers. Generals threw resignation letters onto his desk, their voices hoarse from shouting. Even his most loyal allies stared at him with suspicion, their loyalty cracking like thin ice. The air was suffocating, every eye burning with accusation. And yet, alone in the late hours, the president sat at his desk in silence. The weight of the world pressed down on his shoulders, but his whisper was calm, razor-sharp in its conviction. Let them think I am a coward. Let them curse my name. It doesn't matter, as long as they don't see the truth yet. Above, alien ships hung in the heavens like black suns, unmoving, merciless. Their message was simple, undeniable. Humanity had no weapons, no prayers, no hope. The world was theirs, if only someone dared to give it away. They said the president walked into that chamber like a condemned man. His shoulders slumped, his face pale, his every step heavy, as though gravity itself wished to drag him down. Before him, the alien envoys stood like living monuments, creatures who made tanks look like tin toys, who had turned nuclear fire into harmless sparks with a flick of their fingers. Humanity's leaders had gathered before them countless times, and every meeting ended the same: silence, humiliation, surrender. But this time there was something different in the air, a silence thicker than fear. The president raised his eyes just for a second and let them fall again. He looked weak, beaten, exactly how he needed to look. The lead alien, its voice resonating without words, projected a thought into the chamber. The Earth is ours. Your people are finished. Your resistance means nothing. Do you accept? The president's lips trembled, and he gave the faintest nod. His advisors gasped. Some clenched their fists in rage. To the world watching through hidden cameras, it was betrayal unfolding live. But to him, it was only Act 1. In the hours that followed, the pact was drafted. The aliens demanded land, oceans, skies. They wanted Earth to become a staging ground for whatever empire they served. They spoke of humans as livestock, useful only in small numbers. And all the while, the president agreed. His voice shook, his hands fumbled with the pen, and sweat glistened at his temples. He played his role perfectly. Yet, If one looked closer, if one studied the flicker in his eyes when the pen hovered above the paper, a sliver of something else was there. Not defeat, calculation. Behind the curtains of government, chaos raged. Generals screamed treason. Senators demanded impeachment. Protesters filled the streets, chanting for his head. In quiet rooms, old allies abandoned him. Even his closest friend whispered, "Why? Why are you giving them everything?" And in his mind, the president answered silently, "Because only by giving them everything will I have the chance to take it all back." The aliens pressed their demands further. They wanted maps, archives, access to every corner of Earth's secrets. The president feigned hesitation, then relented, pretending to be too weak to resist. He presented them with fragments of information, reports about a place few humans ever entered, a vast quarantine zone where no one lived, where the Earth itself seemed cursed. "This," he whispered, "is our last treasure. A resource hidden beneath those lands. We cannot use it. But you might." The aliens leaned forward. Their hunger was immediate. Greed radiated from their forms like heat. They wanted it. The president lowered his gaze. His voice cracked with what seemed like despair. "If you want the Earth, take it. But no, this is its core. This is what we could never master." For the aliens, victory was absolute. They thought they had broken him, bent him into compliance. They believed they stood on the edge of total dominion. But what none of them saw, what not even his most loyal aides suspected, was that the president had planted the first seed of their downfall. Because in that cursed zone, beneath the soil and stone, something far deadlier than any weapon lay waiting. And only he knew the truth. As the session closed, the lead alien placed its clawed appendage on the agreement. A beam of light etched their signature across the parchment, burning it with alien fire. The chamber trembled with finality. Humanity watched in horror, believing they had just been sold like cattle, believing their president had surrendered their last hope. But he stood there, still trembling, still bowed. And when he finally lifted his eyes again, just for the briefest heartbeat, the faintest shadow of a smile crossed his lips. No one noticed. Not yet. The pact had been sealed. The aliens thought they had won. The president knew. The game had only just begun. The morning after the president's secret meeting, Washington felt less like a capital and more like a city under occupation. The alien vessels still hovered above like black suns, casting shadows that stretched across entire neighborhoods. Their hum seeped into every building, into every sleepless dream. But inside the White House, the greater storm was not outside. It was within. The cabinet room was packed. Advisors, generals, senators, faces red with anger, pale with fear, tight with suspicion. The president entered quietly, and the uproar began before he had even reached his chair. "Senator Clark, you stood in front of the world and surrendered. Without even a fight. Do you know what the people are calling you? A coward, a traitor." "General Harlow, my men are ready to die for this country. You robbed them of that honor. You stripped us of dignity, Mr. President." The president raised his hand, weary. "President, dignity does not shield us from weapons we cannot touch. Honor does not stop their fire from turning cities into ash, but the words only fueled the fire." "Advisor Miller, you sound like one of them already. Maybe you've been negotiating more than you admit." Murmurs spread like sparks on dry leaves. "Negotiating, collaborating, selling us out." The president's eyes scanned the room. Every face he had once trusted was now carved with suspicion. They see me as their enemy. They can't know the truth. Not yet. He sat down slowly as though the weight of the world pressed him into his chair. President, you want the truth? Here it is. We cannot win. If you had seen what I saw, you would understand. We either bend or we break. The room erupted again. Some pounded fists on the table. Some shook their heads in disgust. Others leaned back in silent calculation, their eyes already working through how his downfall might serve their ambitions. That evening, the streets of New York, Chicago, Los Angeles boiled with protest. Millions gathered, chanting in fury. Some burned effigies of the president. Others carried signs. No surrender, betrayer, death before chains. Police lines struggled to contain the wave. In Philadelphia, a mob stormed a federal building, smashing windows, demanding the president's resignation. Soldiers, sent to restore order, hesitated. Were they serving the people or the man accused of betraying them? News anchors did not hide their disdain. Commentators on every channel spat venom. Anchor live broadcast. History will remember this as the day America lost not just its freedom, but its pride. Our commander-in-chief has delivered us into the hands of our conquerors. Every word cut deeper. And yet, in the privacy of his study, the president turned the television off and sat in the dark, his face lit only by the faint glow of the alien ships outside. Inside him, two storms clashed. They hate me. They curse me. Even those closest to me doubt me. Can I blame them? To them, I am a coward, a Judas. But if they knew the plan, if they knew the trap I've set, could they keep it from leaking? Number. The fewer who know, the safer the deception. Their hatred is my shield. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Emily Ward, his chief of staff, the one person who had stood by him through every scandal, every battle. Yet tonight, even she looked at him differently. Emily, Mr. President, I need to ask you. Off the record, are you working with them? Truly working with them? The question pierced him deeper than the mob outside. He tried to meet her gaze, but her eyes were searching, desperate for reassurance he could not give. He forced a sigh, lowering his voice. President, Emily, if I said no, would you believe me? If I said yes, would you forgive me? Her silence was worse than any answer. She only whispered, Emily, people are saying you're the last man we should trust. Don't prove them right. And then she left. The president leaned back, closing his eyes. His chest felt hollow, carved out by doubt. Even she doubts me. Good. Let them all doubt. The moment they believe in me, the lie collapses. This loneliness, it is the price of the trick. Days passed, riots grew, governors threatened secession, foreign leaders condemned him. The United Nations debated stripping him of authority. Inside the Pentagon, whispers grew louder. Impeachment, removal, replacement. Generals plotted in hushed tones. Some believed he had already been compromised by alien technology, his mind infected, his will no longer his own. But the president walked through it all like a ghost, carrying his mask of defeat. Every step, every glance, every word was measured. In public, he was the broken man who had surrendered Earth. In private, he was the hunter waiting for his prey to step deeper into the snare. And yet, the burden gnawed at him. Alone at night, he returned to his desk, staring at the carved words only he knew were there. Not surrender. Fate. He whispered into the empty room. President, inner voice. One day, they'll see. One day, they'll understand. Until then, let them curse me. Better their hatred than their extinction. But even as he said it, a shadow of doubt lingered. What if the trap fails? What if the virus does not spread as planned? What if I've condemned them not to survival, but to a slower death under alien rule? For the first time, the president felt the tremor of fear, not of the aliens, not of the mobs, but of himself, of his gamble, of the possibility that history's curse would not be temporary, but eternal. And still, outside, the alien ships waited, silent, patient, watching a world that was tearing itself apart from the inside, not with weapons, not with fire, but with suspicion, anger, and betrayal. Exactly as the president had expected, exactly as he had feared. They did not come as guests. They came as masters. The first demonstration arrived at dawn. Over the Atlantic, a city-sized vessel drifted low over the water. Its hull shimmered like liquid glass, bending sunlight into fractured rainbows. Then, with a hum so deep it rattled bones, the ship released a beam. Not fire, not missiles, not anything human eyes had known. The ocean parted. A canyon of boiling water split open, waves towering higher than skyscrapers before crashing back with the force of 10 earthquakes. News cameras caught everything. Anchors whispered in disbelief. Scientists sat speechless, staring at monitors that registered energies beyond comprehension. Entire coastlines evacuated in terror. Children screamed as the ground itself seemed to bend under alien hands. And still, the ships did not fire on cities. They simply showed. In Paris, a fleet hovered above the Eiffel Tower, turning the metal skeleton transparent as if it were made of glass. In Tokyo, one ship rearranged the skyline by sheer force of gravity, dragging skyscrapers slightly off alignment and then restoring them, as if mocking human engineering. The message was not subtle. We can unmake your world in an instant, obey or vanish. Crowds gathered in fear, no longer chanting against the president, but begging him for answers. Parents clutched children, priests fell to their knees, soldiers stared at their rifles like useless sticks. In Chicago, a man screamed into the cameras, "Civilian, we thought we had power. We thought nukes made us gods. Look at us now. We're ants in their sandbox." The panic spread faster than any plague. Markets collapsed, governments fractured. Even the most defiant voices went silent when the aliens bent mountains into shapes like twisted clay. At the United Nations, leaders from across the globe sat pale and shaking as the president entered. For the first time in history, silence reigned in that hall. No applause ever again. He stood at the podium, his face grave, his voice low. "President, you've all seen it. The truth is undeniable. Humanity is at their mercy. And as your elected leader, I have made my choice. I will surrender our world to them so that we may live, even as subjects rather than corpses." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some diplomats buried their faces in their hands. Others cursed aloud. Cameras broadcasted his words across every nation, and the world erupted once more. To billions watching, it was the final betrayal. The president had become the Judas of mankind. But in his eyes, hidden beneath the performance, a flicker of something colder burned. Let them believe it. The deeper their despair, the sharper the trap will spring. That night, the aliens themselves made contact. Their towering forms descended into the White House gardens, figures draped in metallic veils, their voices vibrating the very air. Their leader, a being of light and shadow, addressed the president directly while cameras rolled. "Alien leader, you have chosen wisely. Resistance is death. Submission is life. The president bowed his head slightly, his shoulders slumped, his voice trembling just enough for the world to doubt him forever. President, then I submit. Earth submits. We are yours. Millions wept watching the broadcast. Some screamed curses at their screens. Others sat in numb silence, their hope severed. But inside the president's skull, behind his mask of surrender, his mind whispered, "Step closer, come deeper, believe I am broken. The game is not yours yet." Even his closest aides no longer trusted him. Emily, standing in the corner of the Oval Office, whispered later in private, "Emily, you're giving them everything. If there's any part of you that's still human, prove it, because right now, I don't see a leader. I see a man selling his soul." Her words struck him harder than the alien threats, but he only nodded, his face tired, his voice steady. "President, history will judge me, Emily. Maybe it will call me a coward, maybe a traitor, but history won't know what I know until it's too late for our enemies." She froze, searching his face for meaning, but his mask held. He let her leave in silence, never revealing the full truth. And so the stage was set. Aliens towering above humanity, flexing their strength like gods among insects. Mankind cowering, convinced its leader had surrendered them without a fight. And at the center of it all, one man wearing the face of defeat while weaving the strands of a deception only he could carry. Suspicion now poisoned every heart. Was the president truly broken? Was he a puppet of the invaders? Or was there something none of them could yet see? Some final card hidden in the trembling hands of the man the world had already condemned? They thought him broken. They thought Earth had bent its knee. But those who looked closer, those who listened not just to his words, but to the shadows between them, began to sense something else. The first signal was almost invisible. During a press briefing, the president paused mid-sentence, adjusted his tie 3 times, then leaned into the microphone. To the millions watching, it was the gesture of a nervous, defeated man. But to those who knew, to the small circle of scientists hiding in an underground lab in Colorado, it was the code they had been waiting for. Phase 1 complete. The bait is set. In private, when the alien envoys returned to the White House, their presence filled the room like gravity itself. Their leader, taller than any man, spoke with the hum of a collapsing star. "Alien leader, your people finally understand their place. Fear is the leash. You have done well, human leader. You will be remembered as the one who spared them from annihilation." The president bowed his head, voice quiet. "President, history rarely remembers mercy. It remembers power, and you have shown it." The alien's laugh was like metal grinding. "Alien leader, power belongs to those who take, not those who beg. And you begged." The president's lips tightened, but only for an instant. Then he let the mask of weakness return. "Let them think I am begging. Let them believe I am nothing. That is the only way the trap holds." Days passed, and the aliens grew comfortable. Their patrols slackened, their monitoring less strict. They no longer treated the president as a threat, only as a tool, a broken man delivering Earth into their hands. In a broadcast to the world, the president spoke again. "President, we are alive because of their mercy. We must obey. We must serve. There is no other path." People cursed his name louder than ever. The streets burned with hatred. His approval fell into ashes. And yet, behind his desk, his hand tapped once, twice, thrice against the wood. An old Morse habit he'd never broken. A message hidden in plain sight. "Wait." Watch. The storm is coming. Even Emily, his last confidant, began to doubt her own eyes. One night, she confronted him in the Oval Office, her voice trembling. Emily, if you are lying to them, if this is some kind of act, then I beg you, let me in. Because right now, I can't tell if you're their puppet or our last hope. The president stared at her, the weight of silence pressing between them. Finally, he spoke, each word deliberate. President, Emily, if you trust me, say nothing. If you doubt me, say nothing louder. Either way, I need you to let the world believe I am already lost. Her eyes searched him, but no further answer came. He turned away, gazing out the window where alien ships hovered like moons that refused to leave the sky. And then the second signal came. In a meeting broadcast globally, the president signed a treaty written in the alien tongue. To most, it was the final humiliation. But hidden in the strokes of his pen, the pauses between his words, there were patterns, a rhythm too precise to be chance. Analysts watching secretly in bunkers decoded it hours later. The message was chilling, electric. Their end begins within. The aliens, blind in their pride, celebrated victory. They dined in their great ships above the clouds, mocking humanity's helplessness. They spoke of Earth as property already claimed, its oceans, mountains, and skies nothing more than resources to strip. But they did not see the way the president's speeches always circled back to one theme. The soil hides more than roots. To them, it was the rambling of a broken man. To those listening closely, it was foreshadowing, a whisper of something buried, something waiting. And so the stage tightened. Humanity cursed him, the aliens trusted him. And in the quiet spaces between, the president's hidden signals began to draw a darker picture. The act of surrender was not an end, but the beginning of a gambit too dangerous to name aloud. The narrator in me cannot say it plain. I can only trace the edges, the fragments he leaves scattered. But I know this much. Every bowed head, every trembling word, every appearance of weakness was not weakness at all. It was the sound of a blade being sharpened in silence. The aliens thought they had won. The world thought it had lost. Only one man knew the truth, and he carried it like a secret fire no storm could extinguish. The air in the grand hall grew heavier with every passing second. The president's latest statements had already sown doubts within his government, and among the people he was branded a traitor. Yet behind every phrase, behind every pause, there lingered a hidden layer, an invisible thread of a plan only he controlled. The alien delegation sat across from him, their elongated necks casting eerie shadows under the cold light, their metallic garments gleaming with confidence. Their eyes, icy, unblinking, radiated a dangerous calm. To them, humanity had already surrendered. They could almost taste victory. Then, you are ready to reveal Earth's true secret? The alien leader asked, his voice sharp, metallic, vibrating across the chamber. The president inclined his head ever so slightly. His face carried the look of fatigue, even defeat. But beneath that mask, his mind moved like a blade in darkness. You see humans as weak, he said quietly, his voice dropping to a near whisper, forcing them to lean closer. But the truth of our survival rests on something you cannot even imagine. A silence fell, stretching into tension. The aliens exchanged glances, intrigued. The president allowed the moment to breathe, each second tightening the rope he had carefully woven around them. There exists, he continued, a hidden power. a resource unlike any you've encountered in your conquests. It lies deep within one of Earth's most dangerous regions, untouched for centuries. We have guarded it at all costs. The alien leader's thin lips curled into something that resembled a smile. He thought he had cornered humanity into confessing its last trump card. In reality, he had just stepped onto the president's chessboard. And you will take us to it? Yes, the president said, bowing his head slightly. His voice trembled, deliberately. But know this, once you claim it, humanity's fate will be sealed. There will be no turning back. The aliens mistook his warning for despair. Days later, a fleet of alien crafts descended into one of the most desolate corners of Earth. Mountains of jagged stone surrounded the valley. Storms howled endlessly across the wasteland, and beneath the ground, so the president had told them, lay the source of unimaginable power. They marched in confidently, armored soldiers moving with precision, scanners probing the earth. And yes, they found sealed chambers, ancient vaults buried beneath layers of stone. Inside, glowing canisters lined the walls. To alien eyes, this looked like the hidden prize of humanity. What they didn't know, the resource was no energy core, no mineral treasure. It was a virus, a construct born of desperation, hidden away for centuries, refined in secret laboratories when humanity first realized it might face invaders from the stars. For humans, it was harmless. Vaccines had long been administered quietly, generation after generation, under the guise of routine medicine. To the aliens, however, it was death incarnate. The first signs were invisible. One soldier coughed, another hesitated in his step. Their leader brushed it aside, ordering the excavation to continue. The president, observing from afar through hidden feeds, remained motionless, his face as unreadable as stone. Inside, however, his thoughts burned sharp and lonely. They think me a traitor. They curse my name, yet only through this illusion can they be saved. Let them hate me. Let them spit on my grave. If humanity survives, it is enough. By the fourth day, the first alien collapsed. By the sixth, the virus had spread through 80% of their forces. Still, they did not realize. Symptoms were delayed, appearing only after the infection had already consumed their ranks. When panic finally broke, it was far too late. Entire platoons fell in their own encampments. Their medics worked frantically, but there was no cure. The virus unraveled their biology from within, spreading faster than any treatment could contain. Ships lifted off in desperation, carrying the infected back to orbit, unwittingly spreading the contagion to their fleets. The president watched, alone in his war room. His most trusted advisors still doubted him. The public still believed he had betrayed Earth. Yet, the truth of his design revealed itself now in the silence of space where the alien armadas began to falter. He leaned back, weary, whispering into the empty room, "Checkmate." The skies over Earth were no longer filled with towering ships, no longer echoing the hum of invincible weapons. Silence stretched across cities and oceans, a fragile, trembling peace that hung heavier than any storm. Humanity had survived, but not without paying a price no one would ever fully understand. The president stood alone in the Oval Office, the weight of the world pressing on his shoulders. Outside, sirens had faded, the streets slowly filling with people who dared to breathe again. They did not cheer him yet. They could not. They had cursed him for days, called him a traitor, spat on his name. And yet, secretly, their survival owed everything to the man they had once despised. He walked to the window, staring at the stars where alien fleets once blotted out the night. The sky seemed emptier now, but he knew better. Somewhere out there, survivors of the invaders floated through space, weakened and disoriented, victims of a trap they had never seen coming. Humanity had turned what seemed like surrender into salvation. His mind replayed every gesture, every pause, every whispered signal he had made while the world watched. Every lie he told had been a thread in the web that caught the alien invaders. Every act of obedience a lure for their hubris. The virus had done its work, invisible and merciless, while humans quietly, secretly remained untouched. He exhaled slowly, feeling the weight lift a fraction, but only a fraction. Victory is never simple, he thought. It is always a story told in shadows and whispers, and some will never know the truth. From the streets, faint cheers began to rise. People stepped into the light, blinking at the sun as if seeing it for the first time. They did not yet understand the full scale of what had happened, but the fear that had gripped them for so long was fading. A new dawn was rising over a world that had come closer to extinction than anyone had realized. Yet, even in triumph, the president's face remained solemn. The lessons were clear. The universe was vast, and Earth was fragile. Cunning and courage had saved them this time, but next time the challenge might be different, unstoppable in ways humans had yet to imagine. He whispered into the quiet room to no one in particular. Remember this day. Remember what it costs to survive, and never be caught unprepared again. Outside, children laughed in streets once filled with terror. Parents hugged their families, tears streaking faces hardened by fear. Soldiers lowered their rifles, unsure if they were still alive or dreaming. Humanity had endured. Humanity had won. And in that silence after the storm, there was a subtle, unshakable truth. A man, once labeled a traitor, had played the universe itself, and Earth had lived. The stars above twinkled, indifferent yet witnessing. Somewhere in the void, the remnants of the invaders drifted helplessly, victims of their own arrogance. Humanity had turned death into salvation, betrayal into hope, and despair into strategy. The president finally allowed himself a single, quiet smile. Not for praise, not for recognition, only for the knowledge that the world had been saved, and that the price of survival was a secret he alone would carry forever. The earth breathed again, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like hope.